What's going on, everybody? Chris from Out West with Chris. Today I want to talk to you about tackle storage, terminal tackle storage to be specific. There's a lot of different options on the market right now, and I've had one of these options that we're going to chat about for about a year. Been using it for about a year, testing it out, if you will, and just generally putting it through its paces, and I want to talk to you about it now. This tackle management system, specifically for terminal tackle, is the Battle Box from CalCoast Fishing. There's been a lot of reviews done on this thing already. I'm just going to give you some quick overviews of the product and what it is for anybody who hasn't seen it. But I've been using it for a year, for about 13 months to be precise. And I've got a lot of use in it. It sits in my crate on the back of my kayak, exposed to the sun at all times. And, I think talking about it after a year of use is a good thing. So let's just dive into some of the features, and I'm going to tell you about a few things I like and I don't like about the Battle Box from CalCoast. So let's start off. Overall design is pretty nice. It's a pretty thick tackle box. When we open it up, you'll see why. It is pretty durable. This thing has bounced around my kayak quite a bit, and it's still doing pretty good. Nice thick construction on the plastic. It's definitely not cheaply made. Some really nice heavy duty latches right here. 3 latches, and you get to open it up. You'll see right there, right here, you have a gasket. So that helps to keep water out, and if it's sitting in your crate and you take water on the kayak, a gasket's nice to keep things out. For your terminal tackle, storage that is somewhat water resistant, waterproof, like the Battle Box, that's really an important thing to keep in mind. You don't want your hooks rusting out while they're sitting in your tackle box. Good marks on durability and the overall construction of it. Things are just really holding together really well. A super durable product here. Next up, you're going to see the inside tray. And the inside tray is kind of what makes this interesting. There's a molded foam piece in here with some cutouts, and each of these little, they're like film canisters that you might have used back in the day. If you're that old. Man, I'm getting old. Film canisters? But yeah, that's basically what these are like. The majority of these in the Battle Box that I got have this little foam plug in them. And the nice thing about this, like this has set up for glass and brass in here, so you get some beads and some bullet weights. Stuff makes noise, right? So if you get a bunch of that, you can press it down in there and things are gonna not jiggle as much, which is kind of nice. Noise somewhat a factor when you're fishing, especially if you're trying to be stealthy when you're kayak fishing. It keeps things nice and secure, keeps stuff from banging against each other, like if you had tungsten stuff in here or that type of thing. It's going to keep stuff from getting chipped. They come with this labeling system, so my handwriting is bad, but you can put down what you're using. This is a drop shot weight, as you can see. Got a couple of weights in there. So everything's easy to find, easily accessible. If you have a ton of terminal tackle, you could do one of two things. You could get 2 of these Battle Boxes, or you could actually use the foam divider as a separator of sorts. Now, you could put stuff on top of it, if you catch what I'm saying, so that you have 2 compartments in each little canister. But you wouldn't want to put too much stuff, because the second you pull it out, it's just going to go everywhere, right? So I don't do that. And they even have a bigger one. I don't have anything in this one right now. Bigger canister. But for the most part, most of the canisters are this size right here. As you can see, there's also this area right here. There is something that comes with it, and I don't have it with me. It's out in my garage somewhere. It's basically a little clear container that has little cutouts for your tungsten weights, for like your punching weights and that type of thing. So that's something that also comes with it. I don't use it. I like to have a little bit of room for like stuff that's in packages, right? So that's what I use this space for. It does come with this for some of your larger stuff, a little foam panel thingy that has some slits in it that you could put in larger hooks that aren't going to fit in these canisters very well. I like having this spot open just to, you know, if I'm going to a lake where I might be using a football head, you know, I just take a little bag of football heads or Ned rigs or whatever it is, just throw it in, and you know, I'm good to go. So these little canisters, they're pretty handy. The lid stays attached to the canister. Just pop it like you would an old film canister. Fold it over. It stays hooked on. Pull your plug out, right? And then you have access to everything that's inside. And I really like this setup. There have been a number of times where, like, I've been fishing the bank, or something like that, where I didn't want to carry this whole box with me, right? So I just grab what I needed and say, okay, here's some drop shot weights, whatever it is, right? And you can just take these, throw them in your pocket, and start hiking. In case you're going a long distance, you don't want to have to go back to the truck if you break off. You've got everything you need right there with you. So it's easy to just take a few things with you and not have hooks floating around in your pockets. You know, I really like this idea quite a bit. It's actually a great idea. Overall, my experience with the Battle Box on the kayak has been extremely positive. I really feel like it's been great for my terminal tackle storage. Prior to this, I was using like a regular Plano box and just had, you know, with the dividers that you press in, and hooks would slide somehow underneath those dividers. They'd go over the side of the dividers, and, you know, before you know it, all your stuff is just intermingled, right? And they weren't waterproof, the ones that I had been using. And when I went for a swim in my kayak, I'll put a card to that or a link or whatever down below. You should watch that video. Crap got into that box. I mean, that box sunk like a brick. It was super heavy, right? And I was able to retrieve it. I was able to save most of the gear that was in there, but some of that stuff did get damaged. Some of it got rusted. So the construction on these things is great. They look good, you know, everything's nice about it. There are a few cons, and one of the cons for me is being on a kayak, space is a premium, right? It makes sense. You only have so much space to put your stuff in, and this is pretty big. I mean, this is pretty thick right here, right? It's not small. So this is about twice the size of what I had been using before, one of the Plano boxes. And it takes up some space. So there's that to be aware of. If you're in a boat, it's not as big of a deal just because you have more room in a boat. But if you fish the bank and you have a backpack set up, you know, you're going to be lugging around this thing to carry your terminal tackle. And while it's pretty awesome, it's not always the most practical route. That goes back to the thing with the canisters. You know, you could always pull out canisters, put them in your backpack if you're banging the banks, and, you know, approach it that way. One thing I do want to point out is this thing is stackable. So you see these feet right here. There are indentations right here as well in the lid. Stackable is great for a boat. It's great for your garage or your workshop. Stackable is not always a great thing for, especially with a foot that is that pronounced, when you're sliding stuff in and out of a crate, because as you can imagine, it's gonna jam up on stuff, and especially when it's a milk crate. Mine crate is a milk crate, because I'm cheap, I guess. Well, I bought this, so I'm not that cheap. But anyways, when you're sliding it in and you're running along those sides, they hook, right? Minor thing, not a big deal. I've managed to get around it for a year and a few months. If it was a big deal, I would have stopped using this. The other thing that, I don't know, they could do better, they might be doing it better now, is the labels The labels are just kind of like a cheap sticker. They're round, which is nice. I've had a few kind of have some issues where they wanted to bubble up and kind of peel off. It's not the greatest system. A label maker over this would probably be a little bit better. The top of the lid it's rough. Don't know if you're gonna be able to see, but there are words there, and it's kind of like engraved. They're actually raised. So you want to write on the sticker before you put it on. Just a little word of advice. So the other thing about this box, it's got a pretty hefty price tag. It runs around 40, 45 bucks, somewhere in that general range. Overall, I do think that's pretty fair. This is a pretty well-made product. You know, I've been extremely pleased with it. It hasn't had any issues breaking down. The latches still work perfectly. It stays shut when it needs to stay shut. It opens when it needs to open, and everything stays inside where it should be, nice and organized. So with that in mind, compared to some other products out on the market, it's actually pretty competitive price. Plano just came out with the Plano Edge series, and they have a tackle management box. It's actually sitting right here. This is it. It's pretty thin. So this box from Plano is 50 bucks. I will be doing a side-by-side comparison with the Battle Box and the Plano Edge after I've used the Plano Edge for a little bit. I want to get it out in the sun. I want to beat it up a little bit, make sure nothing falls apart, and make sure it can stand at least 3 months of my use. One final thing, I really like this box. It's been great to me for the past year. I'm not switching over to this because I dislike the Battle Box. I'm not throwing this away. I'm not selling it. You know, I'm gonna keep it. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. This is a great box. Check it out. I'll have links to places you can find it in the description. I'm not sponsored by CalCoast. This is just something I wanted to do. If you liked the video, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're new to the channel, think about subscribing. Check out some of my other videos. And I think that's about it. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for getting out west with Chris.